At 14 years old, he was forced to leave school because he could not learn to read or write. 15 years later, he was already one of the richest people in his city. The protagonist of this story is Jeff Pearce, a successful British businessman who was born in the suburbs of Liverpool in 1953 and had to face great difficulties from a very young age. Jeff lived with his parents and his 4 siblings. His father was addicted to alcohol and wanted nothing to do with life, which is why his mother had to make enormous efforts to support the family. She worked as a seller in a market, but she did not always get enough money, being forced to steal bread to feed her children and her husband. Given the precarious economic situation of his family, Jeff had to learn to earn a living when he was just a child. His mother taught him to go door to door asking the rich to give him the clothes they no longer wore. She then went to the markets of Liverpool and the northeast of England to sell it. His economic and family situation was complicated, and at school he was not doing much better. Jeff suffered from dyslexia, so reading and writing were extremely difficult activities for him. At that time, there was a lot of ignorance and lack of knowledge about this disorder, and his teacher believed that the boy just wanted to be funny by reading the words backwards, so she punished him by putting a humiliating hat on him and leaving him sitting in a corner looking at the wall. Due to the academic difficulties and ridicule that his dyslexia brought him, he had to leave school at the age of 14. His teacher, disappointed in Jeff's attitude, told him that teaching him was a waste of time and a waste. According to Jeff himself, in an interview for the BBC, these words were devastating for him, and they accompanied him for the rest of his life, making him feel like a fraud. Away from school, he continued his activities as a merchant to earn some money. At 17, thinking that no one would employ someone who couldn't even write his own name, he moved away from market stalls and set up his own retail store, thus launching his career as an entrepreneur. Later, he ventured into the clothing industry through 2 different business concepts. Girls Talk, a fast fashion retail phenomenon with stores in Liverpool and Chester, and Tickle Pink, a wholesale business that distributed its fashion designs in the country's large chains. His businesses prospered rapidly, and before he was 30, he had achieved a fortune of more than £1 million. Despite his success in business, Jeff led a life full of frustration due to his illiteracy. His teacher's words echoed in his head all the time, and he felt that he didn't deserve everything he had achieved. He felt ashamed for not knowing how to read or write, so he used various tricks to hide the secret from him. His wife Gina accompanied him to meetings and was in charge of reading forms and contracts and passing them to Jeff only to sign. Gina was his support at social gatherings and dinners with friends, helping him choose wines and dishes from the menu to avoid revealing that he couldn't read. Despite his wife's best efforts, one night Jeff's greatest fears would come true. His daughters asked him to read them a story before they fell asleep. He tried to make up the story from the illustrations in the book, but one of them noticed and told him not to be stupid, that he didn't know how to read. He insisted that he did know, but the girl had unmasked him. He said goodnight, went downstairs and started crying. I would have given all my wealth at that time to be able to read a story to my girls, Jeff said. This is how the life of this businessman went. On the one hand, he enjoyed success, luxuries, and riches, but on the other hand, he felt like a failure because of his illiteracy. However, in 1992, life would test his tenacity and everything would change. The economic recession hit hard and Pearce lost everything overnight. He, his wife, and his daughters had to leave the beautiful house in which they lived and gave up the luxuries they had enjoyed for years. Broke and drowning in debt, he sat in bed on the brink of suicide and thought that this was his punishment for being a fraud and having built his wealth without deserving it. He got back on his feet, decided to start from scratch in the markets where he started his story, and managed to recover. 10 years later, his business empire was stronger than ever, with him owning huge warehouses all over Liverpool. In 2002, he founded a new company, Jeff's of Ball Street, a premium independent store specializing in women's clothing. The store was a success from the first moment, turning over more than £40,000 a year. Thanks to his business success, he received the Independent Distributor of the Year award, recognition that filled him with pride and gave him strength to move forward. After receiving the award in the taxi back to the hotel where they were staying, Jeff confessed to his daughters that he did not know how to read or write. It was a very emotional and relieving confession that allowed him to lift a weight off his shoulders. At 53 years old, he decided to face his fear of writing and overcome his dyslexia. With great effort and dedication, he finally learned to read and write, proving to himself that he was capable of achieving anything he set his mind to. After retiring from business, this successful businessman began a new stage of his life, touring schools, colleges, and universities to bring a message of improvement and inspire future generations. Additionally, he published his own book called A Pocket Full of Holes and Dreams, in which he shares the story of his life and how he managed to build his fortune, not one of his, but twice. As for his success in business, Jeff attributes it mainly to two factors: the relentless determination he has put into every project he has undertaken and the lessons learned during his childhood in the markets of England with his mother. If you liked it, please like and subscribe to continue enjoying more videos like this.